England versus India. The Cricket Badger Test Match Daily Podcast. Can Joe Root's England dominate on home soil? 5 mouth-watering test matches. Can Virat Kohli's India conquer the final frontier? Loving to talk test cricket every day.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome along. It's another edition of the Cricket Badger England against England, England against England, England against India daily podcast as we go through this series. And we're nearly at an end of it. We've only got one test match left. It feels a little bit like Boxing Day or the day after the night before today after a terrific test match at the Oval. India are taking a 2-1 lead into the final test match at Old Trafford starting on Friday. And to help me talk about that, ask a few questions that have come in off the tweets and also any comments you have today. You can add comments onto the feed and we'll try and get to them if we can over the next 40 minutes. But Naman Anand, welcome along to the podcast today. Didn't have you on yesterday, Naman. You're always the height of positivity, you. Even if India are 600 runs behind in a test match, you can still somehow find a way for them to get back into it. But you must be delighted this morning. 2-1 up, 1 to play.
Yes, pretty much. And to be honest, I always believed that India has a world-class bowling attack, and I always believe in chasing on fifth day. No matter how the wicket is, it is always going to deteriorate. So even 200 runs are difficult, and you are seeing how England batting is struggling, and pressure of chasing is always going to be on the other players. So when Joe Root is not contributing, it's already 150 runs minus. So it was a huge pressure, but overall I felt likes of Pope and all were the positive signs for England going ahead. But at least they should have showed some intent after getting an opening partnership 80 for no loss on the fourth day. But after the first session, it was just done and dusted. But you kudos to the bowlers. I mean, Jasprit Bumrah is playing since the Australia tour and just bowling so many overs again and again. And also after IPL, it was they played at least first half and again then WTC final and this 4 test matches in a row. It's a daunting task, and again he'll be playing the World Cup and IPL. Fitness levels are just amazing. Even Anderson at this age is setting high standards, not even only for England players. He's an example for cricketers all over the world. So it's just amazing what red ball cricket brings into play at not only skill at the skill level but also the fitness level as well.
Yeah, I'm exhausting just watching it, and they're playing the thing. And you're on yesterday, but I was thinking overnight, kind of two very contrasting fortunes for the captains in this series. With the bat in hand, Joe Root is absolutely winning the battle. He's about 346 runs ahead, I think, in terms of the runs they've scored in this series. But he must still look across to the Indian dressing room with a little bit of envy, because it seems to me that Virat Kohli, I think has got the better side. On paper, I think India 1-11 are the better team. But they've got this mission, haven't they? They want to win. They want to beat England in England, and they're very, very focused on that. Whereas I think England have maybe just got a little bit tired, maybe lost a bit of focus. Would you agree?
To me, I think it's all about the bowling. Dale Steyn, I think, had a tweet out today where he said the batting wows the spectators, but the bowling actually wins you matches. That's where I think Virat Kohli stands, because if you look at this bowling attack, the difference between the current team and if you look at teams in the past is this bowling attack. And that's why there is that vigor to go and get as many wins as you can. The bowling attack is full of people who have some experience. I think Siraj and Thakur are the two people who don't have a ton. Everybody else, so Ishant has played a lot, Umesh has played a lot, so has Bumrah now with 24 or 25 odd tests, and Shami, of course. So all of these guys have a lot of experience and they bring a lot of vigor in there, right? So I think from Kohli's standpoint, this is a perfect time to actually go ahead and get this done. I don't know whether it's tiredness. To me, Root is maybe missing a couple of people, and also he's not getting a lot of support in the batting. I think if he gets, if you got a little more support in the batting, I think things could be different. And we have seen this series is fairly close. So England playing in England, you certainly give them that little bit of advantage as playing in home conditions. I almost think the bowling has been decent. Now that comes down to the batting, unfortunately for England.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's been a long problem for England, the batting. I think there are a couple of positive signs. I think Hasib Hamid has come in and shown that if he can carry on the same career trajectory, he's going to be very useful for England at the top of the order. 2 century partnerships between him and Burns, and they seem to gel quite nicely together. And I think David Milan looks a far more solid pair of hands at number 3. So there are potentially a few little positives for England in the batting stakes, but the fact that Joe Root is so far ahead of anybody else in that England side in terms of the runs has to be a concern, I think, for him and Chris Silverwood going forward, particularly obviously now after Old Trafford. Next stop, the Ashes, isn't it? And the Australians are going to give them no charity down under, so that's going to be an interesting one. Vasant's been on, and he's basically saying, with rain predicted on 3 days at Old Trafford, is it actually worth staging the 5th test? Can England force the results? Well, I mean, the only thing I'd say with that, Vasant, is having lived in England all of my life, I know what weather forecasts are like, and they do change. And I think even the forecast for Old Trafford over the last couple of weeks has changed a little bit. It's got a little bit better than it was. It looked like it was going to be 5 days of torrential rain if you go back about 10 days, but now it's light rain and the chances of rain on certain times. So you never know. By the time we get to Friday, it might look a completely different beastie. I mean, I've got my blind shut at the moment. I'm in Yorkshire. It's 26 degrees here today, and it's bright sunshine. So you never know what this English weather is going to bring, because about 3 days ago, it was freezing cold here and grey and drizzly. So English weather is not something you can rely on at all, Vasant. So we'll see how that goes. Just going back to Kohli, though, Naman, I always used to be a little bit critical of Virat Kohli. I felt that the heart on his sleeve kind of attitude, in your face with umpires a little bit, even if he was just saying, hello, Mr. Umpire, it's very nice to see you. It's his body language is a little bit aggressive. He leans into them, and it always looks maybe worse than it is. But I think over this series, he's shown that certainly since 2018, when India were last here, he's a far more rounded captain. I think he's got his tactics a little bit more clued up. Maybe they've done a little bit more homework in the run up to this series. He's got some good men around him as well, in Rohit Sharma and Ajinkya Rahane and stuff. But would you agree, Naman, that he seems to be a better captain in Test cricket these days than maybe I gave him credit for 12 months ago?
And also, it's like what you love brings out the most from you. He is a crazy fan of red ball cricket, and the passion what we see of him coming out in red ball cricket is much more compared. I won't say a lot more, but it is a complete different Kohli in red ball cricket, because he's too much passionate about Test cricket, and you have heard in his speeches also. And to be honest, he has learned from various captains as well. He is playing along with Fab Five as well, Sehwag, Ganguly, also then Dhoni, then everyone. He is a learner, so he has grabbed a lot of things, and only then he has evaluated, and he has played in all over the world, whether in Africa, Australia. He is a learner, and it is coming out of him, and also along with Shastri gelling up well. And the pool of players, as you have mentioned, he has got what he wants, and also he's a huge fan of fast bowlers more than spinners. So, and he is delivering that on top of it. And also according to him, the fitness standards which he has raised, not only the skills, only about scoring runs in domestic and you will be straight away recruited. It's not like that. You will see Varun Chakravarti, likes of Pant, also were asked to reduce their weight. They did not entertain anyone, no matter how many six you will hit in the domestic. So it's the star bar he has raised, and it's hard to cross and those standards. And you are getting the result right now what he has done in last 4 to 5 years.
I've seen his celebrations for wickets and victories in this series. If it turns into a victory at Old Trafford, I don't think how high he's going to jump, because he's going to be a rather excitable Virat Kohli in Manchester. Jacob Lunn. And Jacob is a very special member of the Cricket Badger family. If you remember, Jacob actually did the little jingles that go onto the podcast. So, Jacob, it's good to have you with us today, and he's saying, is there anybody in county cricket who you'd like to see play for England? I'll go first with that, and if you've two have got any ideas, then obviously jump on the back. I think, I mean, Jacob, you're a Somerset supporter. Tom Abel, I think, is somebody who I haven't seen a huge amount of playing, but I've seen him interviewed, and I've heard so many good reports about him. Seen his record as well, which is getting better. You know, some people look at his overall career record, and he's averaging in the 30s. But if you actually look at his record over the last sort of 2 or 3 years, even, he's going up every single year and seems to be understanding his game better. Was given the Somerset captaincy at a very young age as well, so there's obviously a deal of maturity already in Tom Abel. So he's one, I think, who is definitely somebody who, if he can, well, even if he can crack Test cricket, is a potential replacement for Joe Root as captain, because he's obviously got it in between the ears as well. I think Josh Bohannon at Lancashire is somebody who keeps churning out runs. I think he looks a decent prospect as well. And I've not heard too much about Verdi at Surrey, the spinner, this summer. Maybe the conditions haven't been conducive, and he hasn't been playing too much white ball cricket, which seems to have kind of centred across the county season. But Verdi at Surrey is somebody who, again, I've heard a lot of good reports from, and I'm sure if he continues the same way, then you never know. And you know, Matt Parkinson as well is somebody from Lancashire who was being talked about ahead of this Test match on his home ground at Old Trafford as somebody that could come on and maybe just give that. I mean, I've heard the phrase point of difference in the bowling attack so many times over this summer, because the one thing that England didn't have during this last Test match was a point of difference. Well, they had Moeen Ali, who was very expensive, and they had 4 bowlers that were very similar. And I think if you start to have a look at maybe a leg spinner, or just look for somebody that's a little bit different in that bowling attack, it might actually help Joe Root have a little bit of variety, even if it's just for one session. It might just make a bit of a difference. I'm going to go to you two. Anybody that stands out from you, from your? I mean, you're in the States, and you're in Mumbai, Naman. But anybody that you've heard of that you'd like to see?
I wish I got to see a lot more county cricket than I actually do right now. In the States, I don't think we get to see anything at all. What we get to see is the international matches. But I am an avid cricket reader, right? So I actually wanted to get your opinion on this. The couple of names that we had heard, before this season, maybe even last year, we heard a lot about Will Jacks. And I don't know whether he is more in the T20 mold, or is he more a 4-day or 5-day player.
I mean, Will Jacks, Tom Banton probably falls into a similar boat of being two players who have initially made their name, certainly in white ball, in T20. Okay. Will Jacks, I mean, there's been a few innings that he's played that have been ridiculously explosive. And I mean, he made his name initially, I think, was it an overseas tour or something, where he basically smashed about 10 sixes in a T20 innings. It was ridiculous. But in terms of their county championship background, I think they've got to grow into that, and it might be that they don't want to. Yeah, I mean, the world's their oyster, isn't it? For a Tom Banton who can club quick 50s, he can make a lot of money, not even bothering about red ball cricket. He does do. He plays for Somerset in the red ball as well. But you wonder about some of the young players coming through from now on, about how much they're going to be thinking about the rigours of Test cricket, and how much they're going to be thinking about getting a big bank balance, and that might change.
Well, Banton looks very exciting, but obviously he doesn't look like somebody who's going to jump into the Test team. But probably white ball, he seems like he's got a lot of talent out there. The other guy who I was curious about Tests, and was curious, maybe actually in on a surface similar to what we just played on, Matt Parkinson, who we just mentioned, looks like he gives the ball a big tweak. So again, another person who would be great. I know he hasn't really played for Test cricket for England, but gives it a big rip. Would be interesting to see him go out there.
Yeah, I think he'll go to Australia. Whether he'll play in Australia, I guess depends on how adventurous they are and how they go. But he's a bowler who he's got a lot about him. At the start of this county season, he was taking a lot of wickets for Lancashire in the county championship. He came to the fore initially as a T20 bowler for Lancashire, but he's got a bit about him. I'd like to see him. To be honest, I'd quite like to have seen him in this next Test match, and just give him a go, because you're not going to learn anything about anybody carrying drinks or not playing. He spent the whole winter in the bubble, didn't play there either, in Sri Lanka or India. And as I say, you don't learn anything about anybody. Chuck him in, sink or swim. Tell him he's on the plane to Australia regardless of how he does in the final Test match, and it maybe takes a bit of pressure off. And go out there and just say, bowl as you do for Lancashire, give it a real rip. There's another one who just comes to mind as well, Jacob, who is Harry Brook of Yorkshire, who got a lot of big raps in the T20 Blast and the 100. But he's also he posted a very hard-earned century for Yorkshire yesterday at Scarborough in the win against Somerset. He's a player with a huge potential, Harry Brook is, and he's somebody who I would like personally to see get another year under his belt in county cricket, because I think sometimes we pluck them out too early. They play, a bit like Zach Crawley, isn't it? You pluck them out because they've got potential. You throw them in, they ultimately fail, and you bin them off, and their careers maybe gone back 4 years. Whereas, maybe give them a couple of years grounding in county cricket and get to know their game, and maybe suffer a little bit of adversity away from the spotlight of the Test arena before you actually get into that spotlight. So, but Harry Brook is definitely somebody for the future. Nama, you got anybody in your mind, or is?
Yes, I was about to mention Harry Brook, and I guess Libe is in a great form in county championship, as well as Nick Gubbins is doing good, and as you have mentioned, Tom Abel. But as you have mentioned earlier, it's not about that team is not performing, and it's all about replace. Replace is the option. What I feel is right now too much focus is on white ball. Say if likes of Bairstow or Moeen Ali are hitting 3 6s in a row, okay, you have been recruited for red ball cricket. So it's all about the roadmap for 1 or 2 years, and these are the pool of cricketers which we want for 2 years in red ball cricket, and no matter what, whether they fail or work on their skills. And likes of James Bracey, I feel for him, only 2 test matches and he's nowhere right now. They flew Josh Butler back from India. I guess he also played 2 matches against Sri Lanka replacing Ben Foakes. So I don't see these players around. You also might have seen Jason Roy played against Ireland. He was just finding the ball. He was nowhere near red ball. So I feel right now it should be all about roadmap and just not replace because England is not performing well. They need to identify skills, is what I believe.
You're gonna wind me up here, Naman. We could have a 3-hour podcast if we're not careful. But there's 3 things, if I can remember them, that come from what you've just said there. My mantra is don't pick a Test team on white ball form. It's been very difficult for England to avoid that this summer because they just left a massive hole in the season where there wasn't any red ball. So that was possibly unavoidable, but it's not the wisest thing in the world to do. You want to basically get people demanding selection, playing the same format. You want to get them smashing 400s back to back to back to back, or taking 30 wickets in 4 games and sticking their hand up and saying, I want to play for England. And that's the way to demand selection for the Test team, not hit a nice pretty 33 with 3 6s in it for Northern Superchargers or something. I think also I think there's a big I think David Millan's a very good case study on this, actually, that having somebody who's experienced Test cricket who has maybe failed. That's all relative. I think probably all 3 of us would take David Millan's initial career in a Test team because averaging high 20s, fair enough. It's not world beating, but he's played for his country, fair play. But he's gone away 3 years. He's been playing white ball cricket. He's made himself into a better player. He's moved to Yorkshire. He's stated that he wanted to get back into that Test team. He possibly thought that chance had gone, but now he's got that second bite at the cherry, and he comes in with nothing to lose really, because it's a chance he probably thought he wasn't going to get. But I think there's definite merit for taking somebody who has been there, seen it, done it, maybe failed, understands the challenges, understands how hard it can be, understands how intrusive it can be in terms of cameras from every single angle and newspapers wanting comment and all of the rest of it. He's gone away for 3 years, decided that he's still hungry, wants a little bit more, but he's kind of prepared for it this time, isn't he? Because he knows what's going to come. And I think that possibly makes it a little bit easier for him. I don't know about how you feel about that, Adams, but I think maybe somebody who hasn't necessarily set the world alight first time around, who's able to then go and regroup and come back, is probably a stronger call than somebody who is just plucked out of oblivion, who's never tasted international cricket before.
I completely agree, because I think Test cricket is hard. I mean, let's forget what the Lord Shardul has done so far in his fourth Test, but this is not normal for people. It is. Test cricket is very tough, and you have to give people a chance, especially if they've gone, worked on their techniques, and they're coming back. We have seen what KL Rahul has done. He got dropped from the squad for a bit. He's come back in. He's tightened up the technique. He's done well. We saw what Virat did actually after England in 2014. He came back with a slightly tweaked technique, was able to do well. So I actually think, in Test cricket, it's good, rather than chopping and changing, to give them a bit of a long run so that they can get used to things. I definitely am not a big fan of, you add somebody and drop them in a couple of tests, because you could destroy a cricketer that way.
Thanks for your question, Jacob, and stay listening to the podcast. It's good to have you on board and on the podcast as well, Jacob. We've got a question here from Manny Vanant, who says Jack Leach will replace Anderson, in his opinion. A rest for Anderson. What are your thoughts, James? He says. And that, if I can just zip up another question here, Vasant's also asking a very similar thing about Jack Leach, about how the England team maybe will kind of present itself on Friday at Old Trafford. I think Vasant, and there's two factors here. Obviously, England are a test match down in this series. England have to win this test. India don't. India can bat out all 5 days if they want. They can rack up 863 and just walk away quite happy with life. But England have got a little bit of rain around potentially. They need to win this test match, and they need to pick a team which is attacking. And I'd prefer to see England pick an attacking side and go for it and fall flat on their faces, than pick a defensive side and then not have the ammunition for Joe Root to throw at India when they get on top. We saw in that last test match, there were a few little very pivotal sessions where India got away from England when they possibly shouldn't have done, because Joe Root didn't have any point of difference bowler, for that phrase again. So I'd like to see them play two spinners at Old Trafford, whether they think it's going to turn or not. Old Trafford has a history of turning. Get Jack Leach back in there. Moeen Ali often finds himself far more comfortable as a second spinner. You tell Moeen Ali he's the second spinner, put Jack Leach in as the first spinner. You'll probably get a load more out of Moeen Ali as well, because he won't feel the glare of the of the spotlight on him. He'll think that he's going to go under the radar a little bit and probably just relax and bowl better as well. So I think having those two in the tide certainly wouldn't do England any harm. What do you reckon, Naman? What in terms of you from an Indian perspective here, what would you least like England to do in terms of their selection?
Just like I am feeling that Ashwin was not part of any of the match till now. Similarly, I feel for Leach, like he should have played at least 2 test matches, and England relied too much on the likes of Anderson and swing deliveries and everything. But India struggled against Leach back in our home. So Leach should have played, and the kind of tosses and he gives that loop to the ball, he could be dangerous. So he should have played at least 2 matches according to me, and he should definitely play the last match, because I have seen in Lancashire, Parkinson has a huge role to play in the counties. He picks wicket at least 3 to 4 in every innings. So definitely there's turnout there, and average score is around 300. So there's something for everyone. Anderson also, it's home ground for him. So I doubt whether he'll be sitting, because it's like a decider for England whether to draw or not.
I agree with you to an extent, but he looks very tired, and there isn't much time between these test matches. And you've got to think about his physical well-being, I guess, as well, and England's chances in the Ashes. Anderson's going to be a big part of that. And even though there's a few weeks between that and the plane setting off for Australia, the last thing you want to do is in this final test match, Anderson, having been caned to death for the first 4 test matches, suddenly goes down with an injury that keeps him out for 6 months and maybe ends his career, doesn't it? You might not see him coming back from that. So I would be a little bit careful with Jimmy, to be honest. I don't think I'd necessarily just wheel him straight back out. Would you, Anand?
I think you need to be very careful with how you deal with Jimmy Anderson. Actually, I think it goes on both sides. Bumrah has gone also 4 tests in a row. He has bowled the most number of overs from an Indian context.
And there's a rumor from the Indian camp that he's going to sit the last one out as well, isn't there?
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking, because they sat Shami out. Shami has been bowling well, so I think Shami's been rested. So I suspect Shami comes in. If Bumrah can play, you definitely want him to play. The same thing goes with Anderson. You need to figure out where he stands. Anderson at this point really should know how his body feels. If Anderson can play and if he feels fit, then you definitely get Anderson.
You see, I take your point, and he's vastly experienced, and he does know how his body feels. But I don't think the player is the right judge in its isolation, because he's going to want to play, isn't he?
Well, true, but at 39, he probably should know where he is right now. He's not a young buck who was 25 who wanted to play every test match, and he's had. I think early in his career, he went through some injury issues, right? He was out of the team for quite a bit. So I feel that he should know. But this is where the coaching staff also comes in. That Silverwood was a pace bowler. He knows how he should treat his bowlers. So.
And the thing is as well, Alan, Jimmy's not just had to bowl a lot of overs, and he's actually had to spearhead the attack on his own. He's got a young Ollie Robinson who he's probably having to kind of mentor to some degree as well through this series. He's been without Joffrey, he's been out without Stuart Broad, he's been without Ben Stokes, Ollie Stone, Chris Wokes for most of the series as well. So he has been the experienced hand at Joe Root's disposal. So that's going to be tiring as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm sure it is. But one thing that does work for England is Vokes. Vokes is really good. So 7 wickets and 70 odd runs, 68 odd runs in the last test. But Vokes as a bowler, I think, can take over that lead mantle over from Jimmy as well. Robinson's good. And hopefully Robinson, being a young buck, can really go on for the 5th test in a row. But Vokes can take over. And then you bring in Wood for that point of difference, some pace, see how that goes, and that could potentially be a decent combination for England as well if Anderson can't go.
Yeah, I reckon Chris Wokes would have played a lot more test cricket if he wasn't such a nice bloke. Because I reckon, you've got a selection dilemma. You're picking sort of 2 of Wokes, Anderson, and Broad for trying to rotate. He's picking 2 of those. Chris Wokes is far the easier one to tell he's not playing, isn't he? The other Jimmy will be grumpy. Stuart Broad will throw his toys out the pram. Chris Wokes will just go yes, and then probably be disappointed inside. So, but he had a superb return, didn't he, to the international arena? Our friends at the Edges and Sledges podcast, we were having a little bit of banter on the Twitter feed because I was saying it was going to be the draw on day 5. Well, they didn't agree, and they went for an Indian win, and now they're gloating. So I'll show that just to show that I have no ill feeling about losing that particular battle on the Twitter. Vasant comes up with an interesting point here, actually, about the analysts and their role in selecting players from county cricket. I mean, every single ball of county cricket is now recorded, logged, is there to kind of play back, and picking out fresh blood. I mean, you, as a selector, you don't actually have to go and sit physically and watch them. There's all of the streams around these days. You can then get the analyst. You could say, I watched the stream the other day. I don't know, for picking somebody out the air, Josh Bohannon. I watched the stream of Lancashire the other day. I felt he was a bit loose outside the off stump. This isn't against Josh Bohannon. I'm just using it as an example. You could then say to the analyst, give me every play and miss outside of the off stump. And he'll just be able to give you a DVD with all of that on, or an MP4 with all of that on. And you'll be able to sit and actually think, would that actually work in Test cricket? And actually make really proper judgments. That's how it's supposed to work. But how it actually works in practice, Vasant, is, I guess, maybe a little bit different. Strategy for India, Naman, going into this final test. Vasant's asking about maybe India's thought process going into this, because there's a danger, isn't there, that if you go in 2-1 up and you play too defensively minded and try and protect a lead, that's when you maybe play poorer cricket and lose the lead.
As far as this team goes, it's going to be no mercy, that I am sure with. To be honest, what my gut feeling says is that they are going to use Ashwin as a trump card in this match, because it's just 4 test match, and in this decider, if Bumrah is not playing, then for sure I feel Shami will need some backing if he is the strike bowler, and he'll be needing Ashwin's backup. And also with too many left-handers, we have spoken enough about Ashwin, but with 2-1, I feel that Kohli would like to attack, and we have tried and tested too much with Rahane right now. I feel for him like nothing is working for him right now. So and Shardul, likes of Jadeja and Ashwin, maybe India would give a chance to this lower order to contribute, and maybe play Ashwin with one extra bowler as well. And it will be a huge responsibility on Pant as well. But I feel three fast bowlers along with Shardul, Jadeja, and Ashwin is what I mentioned in our WhatsApp group also would do. And it's attitude as I if it's going to be fierce, and batting lineup won't change much. Maybe either could if Vihari comes in, it will be only in place of Pujara. I feel they either or it will be in between them. But I still don't. I really want to introduce Kai somewhere in this test series because the kind of form he's in, he could be turn out to be an X factor, especially in that lower order with just few whacks here and there, and it will be all
You nodded, Naman, when I said you shouldn't pick test teams off white ball form. And
See,
Sky's form is
it's
white ball, isn't it?
I do understand. Yes, I agree to that. But he has had a far more experience in red ball cricket as well. It's not that he's only playing white ball cricket. He's a 30-year-old and he has played a lot of Ranji Trophy. He's captain of Mumbai team, and it's not that he is only playing white ball cricket. Like so, Bairstow and Moeen Ali, I do not see them too much in the county cricket. We see them more in the T20s and the ODIs. So this is the difference, and so you directly connect with the players who want to do well. Malan came and in just 3 overs he played, and yes, we got a positive vibe that yes, he is here to stay in the 11. With Hamid, we directly connected, but in these 4 test matches, we are still not able to digest what Bairstow and Moeen are doing. Still in this, so it's all about the connection and the presence of that player in red ball cricket.
My job on this is to stir you up now, man. You reacted to it beautifully just then. And I mean, if I try and twist that initial question to Naman, which was about being too defensive, I mean, Virat Kohli is all about attack. I mean, Naman's exactly right. I can imagine Virat Kohli saying to this team, "We're going to go for 3-1 here." No Indian captain's ever won 3 Test matches in an English series before. He's drawn level with Kapil Dev now on 2 wins. He'll want that third victory. So he goes down as the captain. He'll want that, and he'll want his team to go out and get that for him. But is there a danger you could maybe go a bit too gung-ho and make the mistakes of Headingley?
There's no such thing as too gung-ho. Come on, it's Virat Kohli. You got to take take Kohli as he is. This man is ready to go. He's always aggressive. He has mentioned even before during his interviews that he would rather risk a loss rather than try to play for a draw. So he wants to be aggressive. I think Kohli is going to be aggressive. I think India is going to play 5 bowlers. But the only one difference where I see with what Naman mentioned was the Lord. He had a great match. I think Ashwin should replace him in the next test.
I know.
You know,
you've been drooling over Lord Thakur all the way through the last 5 days. Now you're dropping it.
Rohit's my boy. So is Shardul. But the Lord, he had an excellent performance. Depending on how the pitch looks at Old Trafford, I would think you get Ashwin in. You need Vihari instead of Rahane. You cannot go in with just 5 batsmen. I think you need 6 batsmen in there, and I would rather put Ashwin in there and Vihari instead of Rahane. The Lord, it was a great performance. He's going to come back.
And I'm sure you never have disappointed your parents. But if you had, they would have had the face that Naman has on the screen next to you, just shaking his head in complete disbelief there. Naman, I mean, Lord Thakur's undroppable now, isn't he?
No way. After scoring 250s, picking up root and in series decider where no one is scoring even 10 runs. It's difficult to get even a 10 to 11 runs, and he's just whacking it. And it's not just the first time. He has done it in the earlier test as well, and his presence matters a lot, and more than that, confidence. And as I mentioned, it's not about just you want to replace Rahane just because he's not playing. It's all about the balance what team is needing right now, and lower order, to be honest, is contributing not only with the bat but also with the runs. Umesh Yadav, Bumrah are scoring those 25-30 runs as well. So no way, if Kohli cannot even think of it of dropping him, not even Shastri.
Naman's absolutely devastated and disappointed in you, Anand. You go and hang your head in shame.
You got to look at the balance of the team.
Absolute disgrace.
Well, my love for the Lord Thakur has not changed. He is still the man. I just think you got to look at the balance of the team, and I don't think you can play him if it's a spinning wicket. Now, if it's a green wicket, I would still play Shah.
We've done Jacob's question off Twitter, but Mohan has been on as well. He's talking about Jack Leach and about the forecast. We've covered that really, Mohan, but thank you very much for your questions. Ollie's been on. He's saying, what's England's aim for the Test team going forward now that they are probably not going to make the final of the World Test Championship? Well, Ollie is one of our badges on one of the other tournaments that we do. And Ollie is renowned for being a little bit glass is half empty. So the kind of comment there about England not being able to make the World Test Championship final is probably a little bit premature. But it's certainly not the best of starts, is it? Losing the first series, albeit against possibly the team that you play in the final if you were to make it. But if we do assume the basis of his question to be true, and England haven't got the World Test Championship to play for, you're just kind of building a side. I mean, you can't really answer that question on that basis, can you? England have got to focus on the World Test Championship, haven't they?
Absolutely. And I also think, in this doom and gloom, and this happens a lot with Indian fans too. I think the test before this, everybody was like, this is the worst Indian team ever. We got to keep things in perspective. This is still a decent English team.
I saw somebody on Twitter, Anand, say after the win at Headingley for England, I could play my grandma in this Indian side and it wouldn't make them any worse. And this, and there is that lurch, and that same person, I've not checked this, but that same person is probably now saying that India are the best thing since sliced bread and England are absolutely awful. People just lurch from one extreme to the other.
And that's where, people got to keep a little perspective. This English team still has a lot of talent. We have just seen the emergence of Ollie Robinson out of nowhere, right? So he has had a magnificent start. Vokes, if Anderson kind of slowly bows out, Vokes is there to take up that slack. And we've seen quite a few talents in there. So Haseeb Hameed, another person who, we could look and say, okay, is he going to, take this forward? So, I think there's still some daylight here. The World Test Championship, while you got to concentrate on, that's not the only goal, right? You also want a great test team. You want to play great test series like this.
I was going to say, I was thinking about Ollie's question whilst you were talking there, and surely the World Test Championship is a bit of a red herring because now, you basically pick the best team and try and win every single match, don't you? Regardless.
Yes. So yes, you are 100% right there. But yes, it is all about WTC championship and everything. But looking at, as I mentioned earlier, it's all about the roadmap, the impact what England is having right now with the white ball cricket. I feel the mindset is not there with the red ball cricket, and it's just yes, Vokes can come in. It's not about it is England losing right now and the fans are hurt. It is the way the teams are losing. It is more hurting, like 100 all out or maybe losing 7 to 8 wickets in a cluster. It's all about the way the teams are losing. And yes, WTC championship is going to be there in next 2 years, and they are going to play home and away matches, but it's all about the focus. And the county championship, the domestic championship needs more focus, and the talents playing over there, like likes of Matt Parkinson. Not only this year, he's been bowling since so long, like 4 to 5 years he might have bowled 200 to 300 overs, but he is still not featured for England in red ball cricket. He traveled to Sri Lanka, he traveled to India, but this is what I want. It's yes, maybe you won't play in the final, maybe India won't. It's not guaranteed that India is winning right now, so India might feature over there. But where you are standing when you are not in the final, but yes, you fought well, you were there in top 4, maybe top 3, you have players in your red ball cricket team, and these are the pool, and we'll be proceeding with them, and these are our future.
Yeah, I totally agree. And fair play to everybody through that answer that we never mentioned the Ashes once, because some people will think that's the priority regardless from England's perspective. But we didn't actually mention that once. I think also the fact that we haven't had any Lions tours and things like that, which is, again, hampers of other countries too. But that is a natural progression. A lot of the players that are in the youngsters in the current England side are players that have impressed at county level, had their trips with the Lions and played Lions matches in England, and then gone on and already had a bit more of a grounding when they've got into the test team because they've played overseas before. And there's a couple of years been missed out of that cycle now, so we'll see how that works out. And as I say, that's for all of the sides as well.
Can I mention one point though? One thing that also English fans can take a look at is how exciting this bowling attack is. I know the batting people pay attention to because it wows the spectators, as Stain said. Stone, Archer, Wood, Vokes, Robinson, For some matter, even Overton, while he wasn't as good as Robinson, he was fairly decent. I mean, this is a team that's got a lot of bowling talent. That's going to win you test matches. I know that Archer's hurt right now, and Broad's hurt and stuff like that. But this is a very good bowling attack, and I think that the English Test team will be in more Test matches, than not. They have chances to win a lot more than what it seems like. Again, one Test match or two Test matches doesn't mean it's really that bad a team as people are making it up.
He's a wise old owl, Anand Beaker. And if you're English and listening to that, it's probably wise words as well to take into account. There are some good aspects coming out of this series from England. I think Hamid is one. Malan's return to international cricket, Test cricket is another. And Ollie Robinson and the bowlers, Chris Woakes coming back to fitness. There are some positives, despite the fact that plenty of negatives at the same time, but we won't dwell on those now. Naman and Anand, thank you very much for joining me today. Thank you everybody for all of your questions, whether they came in on the Facebook page or on the Twitter feed, etc. Thank you for all of those. We'll be back again tomorrow as we go. In fact, we're going to take tomorrow off. We're going to take tomorrow off the podcast and return the day before, Thursday, the day before the 5th test. And we'll go all the way through the 5th test, and we'll finish with a big party, some awards to give out. Now we're on video. We got a problem with that award ceremony, haven't we? You two have already been to award ceremonies where I say, and Naman comes up dressed in his nice tux, and here is the award for such and such. They don't actually exist, do they? So we're going to have to try and invent something for all of that. But we'll do that anyway. But we have enjoyed 4 test matches. We've got another one to come. And of course, we'll be back every day throughout that. I've been James the Cricket Badger, and I will see you again on Thursday.